I do not know what is missing in these people's hearts or their lives that they feel the need to smear individuals or groups.
Hey, this is Brian. Welcome back to the High Impact Flicks channel. Mainstream media wants you to know about
The complete and utter lie, the deranged smear that Paul Pelosi and the attacker were in a sexual relationship.
I don't know about you, but I believe everything corporate media tells me. And if you knew what was good for you, you would too. Hey guys, study after study shows that if you want strong bones and muscles, healthy hair, skin, teeth, and nails, you need the 5 types of collagen in your diet. I get mine from BioTrust. I've got a link in the description with a massive discount, and it'll tell you all about it.
Our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer. The suspect pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it. Our officers immediately tackled the suspect.
When it comes to political rhetoric and political extremism, we already know how corrupting politics has become in our culture and in our communities. But when you look at conspiracy theories specifically, they are a drug, and we are in the midst of an epidemic. They are a mind-altering substance. This is metastasized in our electorate. And when you and I talk about things like QAnon and pedophile rings and JFK Jr. coming back from the dead, I mean, they sound crazy and absurd to us, but to others, they are real. Mm-hmm. And when they believe them so deeply, some go ahead and act out on them violently in some cases. I wish that voting were the simple solution to this. Our voting does not make this go away. This is an absolute cancer. And I'm worried that we're going to get a lot more of it because our political leaders are not taking this on. Republicans have decided to court QAnon because they said they liked Donald Trump. Republicans have decided to give comfort to these kinds of conspiracy theories that can manifest as anti-Semitism and racism and bigotry.
Paul Pelosi, the husband of the Speaker of the House, the woman who was second in line to the presidency, was savagely attacked on Friday. And while surgeons were operating on the fractured skull of the 82-year-old grandfather, deranged right-wing fanatics, Trump media allies, and some of the most powerful people in the world were feverishly trying to stir up conspiracy theories that distracted from the central political headline of this story.
The Pelosi attack is ramping up fears of political violence here in the United States in an already divisive climate right here in the nation's capital, Washington.
New horrific details are emerging about the attempted violent attack against House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the one that ended with the wounding and hospitalization of her husband, Paul Pelosi. The alleged violent intruder, David DePape, is now facing federal charges for breaking into the Pelosi's home and beating Paul Pelosi with a hammer early Friday morning. The federal criminal complaint released today reveals that the suspect, who trafficked online in far-right conspiracy theories about COVID and the 2020 election and Holocaust denialism, quote, stated that he was going to hold Nancy hostage and talk to her. If Nancy were to tell DePape the truth, he would let her go. And if she lied, he was going to break her kneecaps. DePape also explained that by breaking Nancy's kneecaps, she would then have to be wheeled into Congress, which would show other members of Congress there were consequences to actions, unquote.
All right, and now to a CNN exclusive, chilling new details about the attack on the husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. A source familiar with the incident tells CNN that the suspected assailant had a bag of zip ties during the break-in on Friday. Paul Pelosi is still recovering in a hospital this morning. He suffered a skull fracture and injuries to his hands and right arm when he was struck with a hammer. President Biden speaking about the attack for the first time and blasting those who have propped up conspiracy theories.
It's one thing to condemn the violence, but you can't condemn the violence unless you condemn those people who continue to argue the election was not real, that it's being stolen, that all the malarkey that's being put out there to undermine democracy.
You've seen the news. He was attacked in their home, and when I spoke to the speaker, she said that he's doing okay. He went to the hospital, was operated on,
and he seems to be coming along well. He's in good spirits. The whole family's there. While this invasion is ongoing, the news reports indicate it was intended to be an attack on the house Nancy Pelosi lives in, the third ranking person in the United States in line to be president. You know, it's reports that the same chant was used by this guy they have in custody that was used on January 6th in the attacks on the U.S. Capitol. I'm not making this up. This has been reported. I can't guarantee it. I can tell you what's being reported. The chant was, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" This is despicable. There's no place in America. There's too much violence, political violence, too much hatred, too much vitriol. And what makes us think that one party can talk about stolen elections, COVID being a hoax, there's all a bunch of lies, and it not affect people who may not be so well balanced? What makes us think that it's not going to corrode the political climate? Enough is enough is enough. Every person of good conscience needs to clearly and unambiguously stand up against the violence in our politics, regardless of what your politics are. All of us together as Americans, knowing Paul and Nancy and the families I do, they're tough as they come, but we're praying for them. We're optimistic for his full recovery.
Democrats are desperately trying to hold on to their slim majority in Congress.
Several prominent Republicans have condemned the attack, including today Donald Trump.
With Paul Pelosi, that's a terrible thing. With all of them, it's a terrible thing.
Trump very quickly pivoted to attacking San Francisco for its high crime rate, but he at least did condemn the attack on Paul Pelosi, as did House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy.
Well, let me be perfectly clear. Violence or threat of violence has no place in our society. And what happened to Paul Pelosi is wrong.
As did Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who tweeted he is, quote, horrified and disgusted by the reports that Paul Pelosi was assaulted. But you know what? Far too many other Republicans and conservative leaders are out there instead spreading insane, offensive, and false conspiracy theories, such as the complete and utter lie, the deranged smear that Paul Pelosi and the attacker, the man who hit him in the head with a hammer, were in a sexual relationship.
The complete and utter lie, the deranged smear that Paul Pelosi and the attacker were in a sexual relationship.
To his 8.7 million Twitter followers, Donald Trump Jr. shared an image of a hammer and a pair of underwear that had the caption, "Got my Paul Pelosi Halloween costume ready." He also posted something else, which he quickly deleted, a South Park-esque cartoon image, supposedly of Pelosi, and the guy who hit him in the head with a hammer having sex. You know what? When some sick moron sent a white powder to the home of Donald Trump Jr. in 2018, sending his then wife, Vanessa, to the hospital as a precaution, that was awful. Why is this happening to Paul Pelosi? Not the same thing, even worse. It's hard to fathom the kind of mind that hears of a tragedy like what happened to 82-year-old Paul Pelosi and decides to traffic in this filth. But sadly, Donald Trump Jr. is hardly alone. Former Republican congressman and chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes, who now runs Trump's social media company, Truth Social, shared this Halloween image with the words, "At least this guy has his clothes on." Nunes also reposted this meme using a poster for the gay romantic comedy Bros, twisting it into a smear of Paul Pelosi, and again, the man who tried to bash Pelosi's head in with a hammer. Words fail. Republican Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana tweeted, then deleted this, which was captured by Voice of America's Steve Herman, a photo of Nancy Pelosi with the words, quote, "That moment you realize the nudist hippie male prostitute LSD guy was the reason your husband didn't make it to your fundraiser." I mean, what is wrong with these people? There's more, but you get the point. In addition to being an inhuman and inhumane response to a tragedy, it's a lie. The federal affidavit released this afternoon says Pelosi did not know the suspect. And San Francisco Police Chief Bill Scott said this on CNN this afternoon.
There is absolutely no evidence that Mr. Pelosi knew this man. As a matter of fact, the evidence indicates the exact opposite.
Sadly, in this era of social media, after every tragedy like this, we unfortunately see some awful reactions. A volunteer official for the Nebraska Democratic Party was fired after saying he was glad Republican leader Steve Scalise was shot by a deranged Bernie Sanders supporter in 2017. That same year, there were some pretty awful comments on social media after Republican Senator Rand Paul's neighbor attacked him, breaking 6 of his ribs, bruising his lungs, making it difficult for him to breathe, sending Rand Paul to the hospital. And 3 years later, commenting on a controversy involving Senator Paul, one of Speaker Pelosi's daughter tweeted that Rand Paul's neighbor was right. She then deleted it. All of these comments unequivocally wrong. But these smears about Paul Pelosi, they're not just evidence of partisanship blocking someone's ability to be human. They're conspiratorial. They're in a way an attempt to not just downplay, but justify the violence. They're part of the same sickness that got Paul Pelosi injured to begin with. Some of these insane conspiracy theories about Paul Pelosi are still trending on Twitter under its new billionaire owner, Elon Musk. And we should note, Musk himself sent a tweet that pushed this false smear of Pelosi. Responding to a tweet from Hillary Clinton in which she condemned the attack as inspired by hateful rhetoric, Elon Musk, who has more than 110 million followers on Twitter, wrote, quote, "There might be more to this story than meets the eye," unquote. And then he shared a link to an extreme right-wing website, a site so deranged, it claimed in 2016 that Hillary Clinton had died and a body double had been sent to debate Donald Trump. Here's what Elon Musk said in April about what he wants Twitter to be.
We want to be just very reluctant to delete things and have just be very cautious with permanent bans. It's very important for there to be an inclusive arena for free speech. Twitter has become kind of the de facto town square.
There is a vast difference between Elon Musk wanting Twitter to lean more into the freest speech possible and Elon Musk himself abusing those free speech rights by smearing people with a complete and utter lack of caution. There is such a thing as empirical truth, and it is not to be found at the website that reported Hillary Clinton dead 6 years ago. National security experts have been warning for years that we in the United States need to fear more stochastic terrorism. In case you're not familiar with the term stochastic, it's defined as the public demonization of a person or a group that results in the incitement of a violent act, even without express orders to attack that person or group. When leaders, whether elected or in media or in a movement, when leaders claim that their opponents are pedophiles or Satanists or a part of a grand conspiracy to hurt you and your family, is anyone really surprised when somebody who hears this acts? What exactly do you think is going to happen when a president, for months, lies to his supporters that an election is being stolen? What exactly do you think is going to happen when smear artists invent a deranged conspiracy theory about Hillary Clinton and her campaign and non-existent child sex operations at the basement of a very real family pizzeria? You know what happens? A guy with a gun drives from North Carolina to that pizzeria.
I really hope that all of these people fanning the flames of this conspiracy would take a moment to contemplate what has gone on here today and maybe to stop.
What exactly do you think is going to happen when politicians and TV anchors push the great replacement theory? The idea that Jews want to replace whites in America with Latinos and people of color. You know what happens? This deranged conspiracy theory inspires the anti-Semitic attacks in Pittsburgh, the anti-Latino attacks in El Paso, the racist Buffalo supermarket shooting. Paul Pelosi, to his attacker, was not a grandfather or a father or a husband or a businessman. He was an enemy. He was an enemy.
Yet in Pelosi's 911 call, he knew DePappy's first name and apparently referred to him as a friend. Here's the audio. This is from a dispatcher relaying Paul Pelosi's call.
RP stated that there's a male in the home and that he's going to wait for his wife. RP stated that he doesn't know who the male is, but he advised that his name is David and that he is a friend.
He was an enemy.
He is a friend.
While speaking today on the investigation into the attack, the San Francisco police chief posed an important question for all of us as Americans.
What does it take? Does it take somebody being murdered? Does it take, what does it take for us to finally stand up and say, this is enough, it needs to stop? Despite what your political views are, it needs to stop.
It's not just folks in the political arena playing fast and loose with these dangerous ideas. Take Kanye West, now known as Ye. His response to criticism of his many anti-Semitic comments has been to make more of them. A recent tirade against, quote, Jewish business people got him suspended from Instagram again last night. And alarmingly, there are a lot of people out there on social media taking Ye's side on this. NBA star Kyrie Irving of the Brooklyn Nets, he recently tweeted a link to a widely debunked anti-Semitic movie full of lies and just junk. He was not apologetic at all at a Saturday press conference.
There's things being posted every day. I'm no different than the next human being, so don't treat me any different.
The next human being doesn't have 4.6 million Twitter followers, Kyrie, at a time of rising anti-Semitic violence. I do not know what is missing in these people's hearts or their lives that they feel the need to smear individuals or groups, to ignore the humanity of these other people. But in one way, Kyrie Irving is right. He is no different. He might have a larger platform, but in this moment, we all need to consider how we talk about our fellow humans.